Subject-verb agreement. Every verb must agree with its subject in number. In other words, if you have a singular subject, you must have a singular verb. And if you have a plural subject, you have to have a plural verb. It's important to establish an understanding for subject-verb agreement early on in the writing process. This is a very, very important aspect of writing effectively. Fortunately, when you're speaking in first or second person, you don't have to worry about the verb endings. You don't have to worry about subject-verb agreement because the verbs are all the same. However, when you're speaking third person, which is often how we do write for most things, we do have to worry about our subjects and our verbs and their agreement. If we have singular subjects, we have to have singular verbs. Simultaneously, if we have plural subjects, we have to have plural verbs. The same thing holds true even with irregular verbs. Singular subjects take singular verbs, and plural subjects take plural verbs. A way to help you remember this is that singular subjects have S's on the end. Plural subjects don't. Another tip for subject-verb agreement is this. If the subject ends in an S, the verb won't. But if the subject doesn't end in an S, the verb will. For example, the girl dances. This is correct subject-verb agreement. Girl is my subject, and there's no S on the end of it. So it has to take a singular verb with the S on the end. If I have this sentence, the girls dance, notice that I have an S on the end of my subject. It's plural. So, guess what? There's no S on the end of the verb. You need to be really careful, as I said in the earlier video, about prepositional phrases that would come between a subject and a verb. Sometimes people think that the subject is one of the words in a prepositional phrase, but it's not. The subject can never, ever be part of a prepositional phrase. Look at this sentence and see if you can figure out the correct verb. Is it study or studies? Well, if you look at it, students is the subject, and it's plural. There's more than one. So you have to find which of the verbs is plural. Remember, singular verbs have S's on the end. So this one without the S must be the plural verb. And that's right. Students study. You can't be confused by class here because it's part of this prepositional phrase. What about indefinite pronouns? Well, to start with, an indefinite pronoun does not refer to a specific person, place, or idea. These words right here in blue are examples of indefinite pronouns. Most indefinite pronouns are singular, and you form the singular indefinite pronoun typically by beginning your word with one of these and ending it with these. So somebody, someone, something, for example. These are always singular. So if you have one of these indefinite singular pronouns as your subject, you've got to make sure that you have a singular verb. These indefinite pronouns are plural. Many, several, few, both, and some. And notice that they have plural verbs. Be careful when you write sentences in which your verb comes before your subject. This typically happens in questions or when a sentence begins with the word there. Look at these examples. Why are they falling asleep? Question words, who, what, when, where, why, and how, are not nouns or pronouns, so they cannot ever be a subject. So you know if you ask a question, your subject will follow your verb. So find your subject. It is they. Notice it's plural, so you have a plural verb. Also, in this sentence, there are no excuses for such bad behavior. There can never be a subject either, because like a question word, there isn't a noun or a pronoun. So if you begin a sentence with the word there, you will know that your subject will come after your verb. Here is my subject, no excuses. Notice that this is plural, so it will take a plural verb. Just remember that the subject can come anywhere in a sentence. If you have trouble finding your subjects and your verbs, first locate the verb and then ask yourself who or what is doing the action, or who or what is being something. You will probably write sentences that have compound subjects. If there are two or more subjects joined by and, the subject must be plural, so the verb will not end in S. The boy and the girl dance. In other words, they dance. An and in English is like a plus sign. It adds two things together to form the plural, so it must take a plural verb. However, if you have a compound subject joined by or, the verb agrees with the part of the subject closest to it. Look at this example. I've got two subjects, professor, students. They're joined by this or. So we have to make our agreement with the subject closest to the verb. Plural subject here, plural verb. Look at this example. Students, professor. These are my subjects, joined by or. Have to make agreement because of the or with the subject closest to the verb. So, singular, singular. So how do I get all of this right? First, identify whether or not you have problems with subject-verb agreement. Some of you won't. And if you don't, well, this is one less thing you have to worry about. But if you do, it often helps to find the verb first in the sentence. Ask who or what is doing the action that the verb describes. This will be the subject. Read the subject and the verb together. Do they sound right? Even if they do sound right, make sure that the subject and verb match in number. The biggest problems people have are forgetting about word endings altogether. Just because you may not pronounce a word ending when you speak doesn't mean you need to forget it's there when you write. And word endings do matter when you're forming subject-verb agreement. And please don't ever confuse the subject with any noun that is part of a prepositional phrase. Remember, identify the real subject, find the verb, and then ask yourself who or what is performing that action. The subject is never part of a prepositional phrase. The verb is always plural when subjects are joined by and. The verb agrees with the part of the subject closest to it when subjects are joined by or. Most indefinite pronouns are singular and will take singular verbs. Relative pronouns can be either, who, which, and that. Don't forget, though, the subject and verb form the skeleton of every sentence. So you need to make sure that you fit the parts together correctly.